Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
Jordan, we're back. We've made it. We've reappeared on people's timelines. It's been a while. Hello, everybody. It's been a good minute since we've recorded a podcast. But Jordan, it's always good to see your face. It's always
Oh,
nice.
thank you.
So yeah, no, I was just being nice to you today. Even though I just told you to hurry up, let's get this thing going. But
That is a really good segue, though, to this is our first episode that I guess second that we have released, the first full one we've released on the new podcast network, Hooligan Soccer. Which means we're also doing video on Spotify. So if you're like Logan and want to see my face, you can.
yes,
There's a watch the video feed. I think this is on Apple too, but where you can choose watch video or you can switch to audio only. In case you want to save battery or you don't like the video player popping up, whatever it is, you're old school like me and don't watch video podcasts, even though I produce a bunch of them. I am an audio guy. I like listening to just the audio while I'm doing other stuff. So I totally understand with that. But we are doing video as part of that. You might also be hearing some ads rolling in during the episodes as well when there's lulls in conversations, stuff like that. But we are part of a great new podcast network, Hooligan Soccer. Look it up. A lot of podcasts have joined that lately. So we're all part of a big family here making soccer content. Most of us in America, I think, but there are a bunch of people who are doing the content elsewhere too, I think. So that's what's changed on our end. We missed last week because of just schedule issues. Logan,
yeah, unbelievable.
doing his stuff.
Doing his crap. Yeah, no, playoff basketball.
Yeah,
May's
the
a
Pacers
rough.
played.
You know what's rough is like
I don't have to worry about that
Yeah,
because
you don't.
the Wizards are not going to
Yeah.
make the playoffs.
Yeah, but this happens in every sport, so I'm sure everybody can empathize with every other sports fan. Is that once it becomes, October is a real tough month to do anything as far as baseball. So you either have to make the decision to watch your phone and the game while you're doing whatever you're doing, or try to find a time to get home and watch the game or find a bar. But yeah, May is always a tough one for me because the Pacers, when they've made the playoffs, have always done pretty well in the playoffs. So they typically make it deeper into this postseason, which they are currently. And scheduling becomes brutal because May's a busy month in my workplace, and just family stuff too. You got graduations, like Jordan. We're attending a lot of graduations right now, nieces and nephews. So everybody goes through those stages in life. But yeah, we're back though. I did, we were talking about the video like stuff with the podcast. It would be really interesting just to know, and you can kind of tell through demographics, and Spotify and YouTube do a pretty good job of identifying what age groups are watching your content. I would be interested to see like how many millennials watch our podcast, but really aren't watching it. They're just listening to us and have it on the TV in the background versus, like I'm like you, I'd prefer to listen to my podcast than watch them. So I don't know. I'm interested. So if you're out there.
Yeah, if you let us know, you can comment on Spotify or you can comment on YouTube. I feel like it's very different. Like my friend Ron is around our age, but he watches a lot of stuff on and he knows all these YouTubers for our other podcast, Soups and Sabers, where we talk like Marvel, DC, Star Wars, all that kind of stuff. We've had great guests that he's fans of that I never heard of.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't watch a lot of that stuff. I was more of like my guests that are on my like short list to have are all audio podcasters because that is what I've used forever. I tell a story all the time, but the whole reason I'm in the podcasting was because of the show Lost. The first podcast I listened to was the official Lost podcast. So that's how I interacted with it. And that was back in like 2008 that I was listening to the official Lost podcast. And then around probably like 2010, whenever Extra Time started, is when I was really like the World Cup, 2010 World Cup. I was listening to Extra Time, and like when they moved to having video content on Extra Time, I wasn't watching the YouTube version. I was still listening to the audio, because that's how I knew them. That's how I interacted with it. But it is like, apparently YouTube is one of the highest places for podcasts right now. So it's all interesting on how this stuff works now.
Yeah, all video content. I mean, YouTube is the most used platform in the United States. You know that? It's the most visited website.
Yeah,
over Google now. Like, people go to YouTube to figure things out. So, which is crazy. I mean, you and I can remember. Jordan, you and I can go back to remember when YouTube was just like it was random like video clips that you took video of way back in the day and you posted.
Yes, I have a YouTube account.
Yeah,
it is all that.
yes. I've watched many of.
You
Jordan's
watched it on
YouTube.
program.
I did. I binge
12 years
watched,
ago.
Yeah, but no, it's fascinating to me. But that's what we talked about with joining Hooligan. I think it's a perfect conversation to have just before it. And, we've talked about how people consume content anymore, and it does seem audio is the way to go. People are busy. You can speed us up to ×2 if you're able to do that. I can't focus enough to do that.
No,
Mine's like I can do a 1.5. That's usually my limit. That. Really? You can't speed them up?
I listened to, this is going to sound like, I guess I am a strictly at the speed it was delivered is the speed I listened to it. Yeah. Even if it's a slow talker, I'm like, this is how this person talks. Like, I can't do the whole speed up stuff to get through stuff faster. I mean, there's people that watch TV like that now.
Yeah,
like,
I can't do that. No.
I've heard people be like, I was watching Walking Dead and I fast forwarded through all the talking. I'm like, what are you even getting from it at that point?
Yeah, how do you do that? And welcome back, Lost. I guess we can officially announce it on this podcast. Did you see all that? Well, anyway, we're getting off topic, but supposedly Lost is coming back. That's the word on
rumor?
The street. Yeah, that's the word on the street. I'll have to send it to you after. I was going to send it to you and I completely forgot. But supposedly, I think it's going to follow. Supposedly, it's following Sawyer, but that'll be interesting because he just started a new show. So
yeah, I would doubt the legitimacy of that report, but we are here not to talk TV or any of these new podcasting networks and stuff.
I gotta go back and fix my notes then. I thought we were
we are talking match day 11. We did not talk like match day 10. I guess that's when it was, right? Match day 10 that we missed, or is these?
Yeah,
okay.
Match day 10 is what we lost. Yeah.
When we miss a week, it throws me off on what week we're talking about. But we are talking about the current state of Major League Soccer. We're not going to really go further back and talk about like what we had missed. But one thing I do want to talk about that we kind of missed, right, was the Champions League, the CONCACAF Champions Cup. The Whitecaps beat Miami to advance, and they will be going to face against Cruz Azul on June 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern time for the final. That is what is, I think, just amazing in the sense of how this Whitecaps team has been playing, that they had to take on a couple Liga MX opponents. Then they had to go face against Inter Miami. And now, and they've done it all convincingly while also holding their own in the league and being the best team in the league. Still, 26 points. That's the highest in Major League Soccer right now. Like, to me, that is the amazing story of the season so far. And I think if they continue this, let's say they even lose the final, but they have a great run, win Supporter Shield or something, they're the story of the season. Like, no matter who wins MLS Cup or whatever, if Vancouver does enough and keeps up this where they've played in a CONCACAF Champions Cup final and they like win Supporter Shield or win the West, like, to me, they're like the story of the season, because this has been, like we've talked about numerous times, when they fire their coach, which seemed like a shock, right? And I was kind of like, oh, I don't like that. And now here they go, and they've hit the ground running to start the season. They're juggling Champions Cup while also missing Ryan Gold for a good chunk. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. It's like the exact effect I feel like you want when you fire your coach, right? Like they've elevated this club this season tremendously, and it makes me really curious on like what the limit is for this club. Like, what do you think the limit is, Logan? Can they do a double like a Supporter Shield and Champions Cup? Or 3 Liga Mekis teams too much? Like, what is the limit for this team this season?
Yeah, I mean, you make some really good points as far as, I mean, Jesper Sorensen steps in January of 2025. They appoint him as the new head coach. They fire Vanni Sartini, who, I mean, Jordan, I thought Vanni Sartini was one of the best and highly thought of and highly regarded head coaches in this league. And
He gave great quotes
he was
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just a completely honest person. And honestly, I thought he did a good job with Vancouver. Not great, but I always thought that the talent just hasn't got to the level in which it is now. I mean, you're talking about a Sebastian Berhalter who has completely changed the complexion of this team. And then you talked about it where Ryan Gould's been out for a lot of this season, hasn't competed in these competitions. They're getting him back soon, and he's going to be able to compete in these competitions. And it just takes this team to a whole different level. The question you ask is, how far do I think that they can go? I think the sky's the limit right now. I mean, I'm looking around MLS and they handled Miami. I mean, handled Miami, and we don't really see that in MLS. We don't see, especially twice in 2 games, Jordan. They took care of business and smacked Miami. I don't know if there's a better team right now in North America, let alone, just Canada and the United States, but also with Mexico. I think there's just so many things that they're doing right and doing consistently. And I'm very happy just because, I mean, I've been kind of the Vancouver bandwagon person. Like, they're a team that when they're on, I like to watch them. And, kind of a second fandom for me, just because they've been through so much. I love their kits. Their kits are beautiful. The logo, I love. I just love everything about that area in Vancouver, and I'm fascinated by it. So just watching this
They're
team perform.
the last Cascadia team that needs to win MLS Cup. And
Right.
I would be lying if I said I wasn't rooting for them to do so. Like,
Yeah.
if the Union don't get there, like, I would love for the Whitecaps to, like, win and that would be, I don't know, this sounds like maybe a made up stat, but I feel like it would be like, we don't have any other rivalries like this where it's 3 teams, but I would say, like, if there is like a 3-team rivalry like this would be the first one to ever all 3 win MLS Cup, right? Like,
Right.
most rivalries are 2 teams, but I could say maybe like an
Yeah.
Orlando, Atlanta, Inter, Miami
Yeah,
kind
the
of triangle there.
The California teams will put their hat in. I
Oh,
think
they've
San
all
Diego
won
and
one. So
LA.
that would,
Like,
yeah, that would be.
but I think San Diego, you add them in, and it's kind of a 4-team rivalry now.
True,
So
true.
you add them in, and in Texas, Austin hasn't done anything, and I don't believe Dallas won MLS Cup.
No, they are one of the original clubs to not.
Yeah.
That was one of Perea's shortfallings. There is not winning with the team that won so many supporter shields, or I think 1 or 2 supporter shields during that time. But they were like constantly top of the West and did not get it done. But I kind of agree that like the limit of this team is so far sky high. We've seen an MLS season beat these type of clubs down though, so I don't really know. Like, I'm kind of worried that 3 Liga Mekis teams is too much for them to beat, and like they're not going to win the Champions Cup. But like, even if they just win that, like, that is a pretty darn good season. Even if they start falling apart in the league, like being the second MLS club to win it and being the first Canadian team to win it, right, would be like the story, like I said, of the season. I wonder if we'll see as many. What we did before, I was gonna say, I wonder if we'll see as many like pro, like Vancouver sentiment on Twitter and in those spaces since it's not American club. But when Montreal got there back in 2015, when I was on program, there was a pretty good sentiment online of people rooting for Montreal in that 2-legged final. So maybe I'll take that back there. But no, I agree that like this, I'm just still shocked and so surprised by it. I don't want to pull up the graphic because it's wildly wrong, but I did not have them like anywhere close to this. And it's not even like they're beating like bad teams, right? Like we just talked about it, but they have only lost one game. It was at home, actually. On away, they've actually been better. They've only given up 8 goals, but even if you include Champions Cup, like they were going up against another team that people see as like the best team in the league, and they dispatched them pretty well. I was a little nervous for them when Miami scored like a minute or 3 into the game on that second leg to make it a 2-1 aggregate. And I was like, okay, here it goes. Now you got to hold on. And then they just went on and won it. Like they just were like, the goalkeeper kept a minute and then they go out there and just scored enough goals to really like they buried Miami at the end of the second leg. So that is one of those things where it's like, okay, let's see how the adversity gets to them when they face like Miami. And yes, they won the first leg 2-0. Oh, now they give up an early goal. Will they fall apart? The answer was no. They wouldn't fall apart. And I think that is the biggest testament I can give to this team is that they seem mentally sound as well as like playing physically sound.
Yeah. I mean, you look at players who have been the difference makers, and I mentioned Sebastian Berhalter, but Jordan, I think we'd be remiss not to mention a guy that we've talked about before on this show quite a bit, especially when Vancouver have fallen apart at the end of seasons because they always tend to start pretty well or they end up not starting well and then getting hot. Like we always talk about them as a cusp playoff team, but this year, I mean, they're flat out running away with the Western Conference because it's so weak right now. Do you? I mean, listening to people around Vancouver and looking at this team and seeing how well Brian White's done. I mean, if you're Mauricio Pochettino, you've got to give him a look. I mean, he's just been that good offensively. He's got 12 goals and 16 appearances in all competitions this year. I mean, he's just come onto the scene. I mean, he's been on the scene for the last couple of years, but I feel like this year he's finally done what we've expected he can do and played in this last camp and in these last games where the U.S. just looked out of sorts and actually provided quite a boost. He and Diego Luna. I mean, these two look like guys that could really produce for this U.S. men's national team. And I hate when people are like, well, it's Brian White. He plays in MLS. He can't be part of this U.S. men's national team. But do you think that there's a possibility that next year, when we're talking World Cup, that Brian White could be on this team?
I think it's a possibility, especially if Sargent continues to not really produce.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sargent will kind of do it at club level well enough, but then he'll kind of get injured, and then like he doesn't really show up so far on the national scene. Like, how many times can you keep running that out? I'm really, really curious on when we start talking Gold Cup and we cover it in a month or two, like what that looks like, because supposedly they are bringing like their A squad, and I want to see what they determine that to be. And I also wonder, like, if a player doesn't seize it there, is that kind of like their last chance? Like, how many times can you run out some of these same players and continue to get disappointed? That's kind of like what I'm facing as an Orioles fan right now, who've had like another sort of promised golden generation that is not delivering at the level that people thought they would. And you wonder, how long can you run this out? The same lineup, the same starting 11, without making adjustments or seeing the players grow at all. We've seen that with Reyna for however long, where we keep being told he's so talented and we see it in flashes. And then he just can't get games with his club, and now he's going to be moving. And you're like, now this is going to be the biggest move in Gio Reyna's career because it is so close to the World Cup, and it is going to set the precedent of, will he be in that 2026 team? That's a legitimate question. I wonder, Poch does seem like he doesn't care what league you play in so far. So Brian White's been called in. Fans haven't liked that. I think he could get a shot in the Gold Cup, actually. But if he doesn't produce against what we would see as lesser opponents, I don't know if he's getting the World Cup call either. So
Yeah.
it's really up in the air for me on Brian White's position. I would like to see him get more of a run in, but it is also very different playing for your national team than your country. We see that than your club, because we see it all the time with this squad where players like Pulisic, who are playing very, very well at their club, go to the national team, and because of whatever reason, whether it's the players around them are not good enough, whether it's the fact that he is the main man, so the defenders know who to cover more than when he's at his club team. Pulisic does deliver, I would say, most of the time, but it's not like at the level of which we probably thought he would for the U.S. It's not at that Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey type of level that we were kind of expecting. Those are the type of questions we're going to be dealing with going into this Gold Cup, and then after that, you got a couple friendly windows, and then you're looking at the World Cup. Like, it's getting scarily close, Logan.
500 days.
We're almost a year away from the World Cup, and we still have these questions. Like, we put this up last year, right? Actually, our first World Cup game is 401 days away.
401
I have a countdown
days.
for it. I have a countdown for it.
I knew that wasn't, the math didn't seem right on that. I Googled that too, and I was like, 500, that doesn't sound right. Because
probably that AI June. Google.
It was 100%.
Yep. Yes. See, there you go.
It's awful. AI sucks.
Like, I am feeling a little bit nervous about getting closer and closer to this, because I feel like we did that video last year of State of the Union strikers, and
nothing's changed.
None of those have really stepped up to the plate at all, right? Like, I don't feel like that's saying anything wild. That was 2024. That was a year and a half removed from the World Cup in 2022, where we still had questions about it.
It's really bad.
I know we were supposed to do more videos on that stuff, but some of those other positions seemed pretty locked in. But I'm sure we could probably do one on state of the goalkeepers, get ready for the World Cup too, because that is another question I feel like we have going into this World Cup now that we didn't think we would have a question of that. We thought Stefan Turner like locked down. Now we're going into this like maybe it's Stefan and Schulte because Turner's not playing well. Like, there's a lot of questions with that, and I know this is totally off base of what we were talking about, but I feel like when you invite the Brian White conversation, we kind of start going into it. But I don't know. I if he gets called into it, I'm hoping it's not like last minute World Cup thing. I would hope it is like a Wando type of situation from 2014, where I feel like, off the top of my head, I don't recall Wando being like really well integrated with the squad. I could be wrong, but I don't think he was. If Brian White's going to have a chance and be a part of it, then I want to see him in the friendlies. I want to see him in the Gold Cup. And then if he doesn't do it there, then maybe you go back to the old reliables. Like, I don't know.
State of the Union, not good.
Not state of our soccer team, not good right now.
Yeah, which is, a shame, because we need a good appearance in this World Cup, and that doesn't mean we got to win the World Cup. We're not going to win the World Cup, but we needed an extra deep run into like a round of 8. But I just, there's just so many question marks. But the league needs it, MLS needs it, and I'm sure that we'll get some positive out of it, just because it'll bring an attention to the soccer stadiums and the this celebration of soccer in the United States. I think we get a lot of attention and money from it, and it helps our cities, it helps our youth academies. But at the end of the day, Jordan, I feel like we've really missed so far on capitalizing coming to the United States for a World Cup.
Yeah, not just on the soccer field, but maybe the country,
the climate,
politically. They were just talking about, making jokes about don't overstay your welcome here. I don't know how many people are going to show up. I think it'll still be very well populated.
It'll scare people off, though.
It will scare some.
Which is
I think
wild
it will scare
to
some.
think in the United States that we came to that.
It is
scared people off because they don't look like us.
you have this, and then you have the fact that MLS maybe hasn't grabbed the reins of having a World Cup as much as we thought they would. And then you have the fact that maybe we still haven't done enough player wise, but also like federation wise, where we're still charging asinine prices for friendlies that are not giving us the advantage that we should have. Making the players maybe not play as well because they don't think the fans have their backs. Like there's a lot that can be really assessed with this going into where it looks like we might be blowing this. We might be blowing at all fronts. We might be blowing holding 2026. And that is frustrating when we originally thought we were going to have the 2018 one, I think it was before, or the 2022, before they gave it to Qatar. We were in the running for that. And we thought, oh, like back then when that was announced in like 2011, 2012, whenever it was, we were thinking, oh, that one should have been ours. And we'll be, the next one we get can really shoot the sport up the tables of American sports and get people aware of it more than they are. And we've kind of talked about that previously too, of what's causing us to not sell these games. I think prices is that too, but also like when it's meaningless games or not the World Cup, the average fan who tunes in during that time doesn't care. They just don't care. They really only like when we do well in it, when it's a World Cup, and they can say, we beat you at your own game. It seems like that's pretty much the only time that those casual fans seem to care.
Point. Yeah, because the Euros, it's bragging rights where, and MLS needs to grow. But yeah, I just feel like right now there's just active forces against it.
Talking about a team that represents the country, the New England Revolution have won 4 straight games. They beat Toronto on the road 2-0.
America's team.
America's team. Is this real? Like, is this real life? Like what is that? David Goes to the Dentist?
Yeah.
Is this real life? I haven't thought about that in forever. But like, I don't know. Like they were kind of the punching bag for us, I would say, early on, where they had 1 point after however many games, and now here they are, 4 straight wins. They're up in a playoff spot. They're in 9th place. They're actually above Chicago, who started off very hot, right? They're above Atlanta, who many people picked to win MLS Cup. Not me, but many people. Just kidding. I did pick them, but they're above Atlanta by 6 points now. 6 points. Atlanta, the team spent $40 million versus New England, who kind of, we were like, what are they even doing? They're 1 point behind your team, Orlando, Logan. Like, Are you buying this? Are they legitimate? Or has it been just a good run of games for them finally after underperforming for the last year?
I think anytime that you have a guy that can be the best player in the league, on somebody that can just turn it on like that, like Carlos can, right?
Oh yeah, the goal. Oh my god.
Oh, he's just and Jordan, he looks healthy for the first time in a couple of years too. For some reason, he just didn't look right. And last year, I mean, I thought Caleb Porter had a good chance of being fired after year 1 because of 1, how bad he was, but 2, he just deflected blame, and he's very good at that.
That was the big thing for me.
Yeah,
it wasn't really how bad they were playing. It was just anytime the local press, who we know, right, for the Revs, would ask questions, and he would just kind of deflect blame or blow it off. Like that was kind of the weird thing.
Right. Like, don't you think I know what I'm doing? And I guess clearly he does, because I mean, this team, and I look back at their losses, Jordan, and they're not too bad. Like the losses against the Columbus team, that was not as good at the beginning of the season, but you'll take that, right? Columbus is a good team. Philly started out really hot.
And they still are. They're second place.
Right. So they,
right?
Yeah,
like
that's
Philly's.
Ask me if they're real and I'll give you a different answer. But but yeah, Jordan, I think the optimist in me is coming out and saying that, I think the Revs are. I think that they've got things going on that they didn't really have in years past, that things that are getting better that might not have gone according to plan last year. And a lot of that's learning Caleb Porter's system, right? You got to give them a little bit of break. That's why I think it's really hard to fire a coach after one season. But, some teams do it. But again, I think the Revs' biggest thing is they've defended really well. So they've only allowed 7 goals. I think the biggest concern for me, obviously, is their 9 goals that they've scored. But I will say they seem to be turning a corner, right? Like, I think this was a team that was kind of feeling it out, see how they were going to be this season. But I think as the games have gone on, they're starting to figure out how to attack again with Carles Heel at the forefront. He's got 5 goals and 1 assist this season now. So, and that's in his last 6 games. So, I mean, he's turned a corner. He's back to, if he keeps playing at this clip, Jordan, he's at the MVP level that we saw him years ago when he could take this team with Bruce Arena all the way to the mountaintop. And I thought they were headed there before Bruce got into trouble. So I guess I can pass it over to you. I mean, are you buying it? I'm convinced by they've not really gotten smacked around in the league, and they're now starting to figure out how to attack again.
This is kind of the Revs team I thought we would see under Porter. Like, I remember they were hiring him. I was like, great hire. Like, he won a MLS Cup with Portland. He won an MLS Cup with the Crew. This is a guy who's been around the block for quite a while in this league and has had winning successes. Maybe he gets a little stale, but it never really starts to stale the way it has. And like you said, the losses, Crew, Philly, and NYCFC Cincy, like those are not really like bad losses, especially where they stand currently, probably. But I would say also the wins are not super impressive at this point. I am kind of jury's out on me still, because you have the win against Red Bull, who are now below them on the table. Win at Atlanta maybe would seem a little better if Atlanta was performing up to the expectations, but they're not. A win against NYCFC, okay, and a win against Charlotte. That's a big one. Like, that's their marquee win, I would say, right now, is the Charlotte win.
Right.
Toronto, they've been poor as well. So you got a real test, I think, for both sides next week as they face Orlando. It's, okay, you guys are separated by 1 point. Orlando, you had lofty expectations going into the season. The Revs have been kind of poor. Can you make another statement victory here against Orlando? And then they'll have to go against San Jose, who's been poor. SKC, who's been poor. DC, Montreal, they've been poor. Like, they actually have a very easy schedule right now that is not loaded with heavy hitters, where they can actually rattle off a few more wins in a row. And maybe I would actually believe it a little bit more at that point. At Orlando, home to San Jose, at SKC, at DC, at Montreal, and then home against Cincy, Nashville, Colorado, Portland. What, so Cincy, Miami are like their next toughest games? I'm seeing, like maybe Colorado, Portland stuff. I don't know. Like, it's very tough to look at this. Those games I just rattled off go to match day 20. I mean,
they don't have that.
They don't have like a hard schedule right now. Like, that's great. Now it should be a lot harder at the end of the season, you would think, then, because everybody plays the same amount, like almost pretty much plays the same teams. So I don't know, man. Like, I would like to say I believe in them because the fans have been through so much, and like, this is like usual Caleb Porter, but I am still weary about the number of goals scored. The defense has been great, though, and I would say jury's out, but they actually have a very wide open schedule in the next few weeks here to really pour on some more wins, and that'll really get people looking, I think.
Yeah, and their biggest thing was trying to find a goal scorer, right? They've gone through a selection of goal scorers that they thought were going to be top of the line, and Carles Heel's going to score you goals, but not at like a high level necessarily, like a 15 to 20. I mean, maybe he gets there again, but when he was an MVP caliber, that's where he'd get to. I don't know if he's got that quite in him, but Leo Campana is a guy that I feel like I was waiting for him to get somewhere where he could flourish, because I think with Miami he had chances, but I'd love to see what he can do, because he kind of reminds me play style-ish, kind of like a Julian Carranza, and kind of that same story where Campana hasn't really gotten the chance to excel. And I think he might be in a situation where he starts to figure it out too. And if he does, then I'd start to really pick this Revs team. But like you said, Jordan, this team could get real healthy on wins over the next couple of months, it looks like. I mean, it's not until the end of the year, Jordan. I'm looking all the way down their form guide.
Yeah.
It's not until like week 25, 6, 7 that they start to really get into, and then it's like a gauntlet. I mean, then you really have a, so they
But
go LAFC.
You're
Yeah.
hoping if you get all these wins now,
Right.
you're in a safe playoff spot where those
true.
games won't matter. Like
Yeah.
that's a realistic thing. So like I don't want to take anything away from the Revs because they're beating teams that they probably should by where they stand currently in the table. Maybe before that we were kind of like, wow, these are a little bit of big wins for them. But like they are now beating teams like they should. And if they can do that again with these other teams, like I said, you have a good chance of maybe putting yourself in a good position for the tougher part of your schedule, which is 13, 14 weeks from now. Like that is insane. And that's kind of where you talk about strength of schedule and everything, that, yeah, most of these teams in the East are playing the same sort of schedule, right? But if you're playing it in a certain format, when you face those hard teams at the end, those games may not matter to you at all. You may be in a really good standing. Like if they're in the non-wild card spots when they hit that stretch, I would feel pretty good about them still making the playoffs. Like the bad thing would be if they're in like the playoff spot in the wild card and it's risky and they go against that tough stretch.
Yeah. Because I mean, their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games are LAFC at Columbus, against Charlotte, at Chicago. They come home to play Toronto, at Philly, come back home, play Atlanta, back at Miami, and then end with Chicago. And those teams have been playing pretty well, or starting to play well. So, I mean, the only real winner, or the only games that you feel like you could win, I mean, right out of the gate are Toronto and possibly Atlanta, if Atlanta's playing like that. But I still feel Atlanta will be at least better than what they've been. But I mean, we keep doing this. We're in match day 11 and we keep going, well, Atlanta will get better, right?
I'm almost at the point of calling it for Atlanta, right? Like kind of going into Atlanta and like Philly, right? Philly beat them 3-0. Philly beats DC 3-0 and then beat Montreal 2-1. But Atlanta, I mean, they're sitting so low in the table. They only have 2 wins, and those are against Montreal and NYCFC, right? Their draws are with Red Bull, Cincy, Dallas, Nashville. Not really impressive draws. And they're lost to most of the good teams on the list, right? Their losses are Charlotte, Miami, New England, Philly, Orlando. I guess you could say that's probably their best part right now, is that their losses are against teams that are been pretty good this season. And not like there's not one that really sticks out there of like, oh my God, that team is awful. How'd you lose to them? It's that their draws are like against teams that they probably should be beating, right? And that's where we're coming up with the Atlanta problem of, look, it's MLS, it's a playoff system, they have time, they can make signings, they can spend another 40 mil in the summer or whatever if they want to, but we are reaching a point here as they are now 10 points on the season. And they currently sit in the it's loading for me. 13th place. That's two higher than the worst team of Montreal in the East. One thing they have going for them is that it's still in reach. It's like the American League in baseball right now. There's no good teams in it right now. For certain things, there's good teams in the East still. But what I'm saying is they're 2 wins away from being like New England and being in the playoff spot. Like, and if I'm Atlanta, you have to sometimes look at that and look at New England and be like, hey, they were able to do it. Let's start getting into gear so we can do it, right? Like, there's still time. It's only 2 wins. But they've only had 2 wins, right? So when you say it's only 2 wins and that matches the total that they have, it becomes like a steeper hill, I think, than what we are probably used to seeing. Um, but MLS does change fast. Like I said, New England, Charlotte was top of the East a couple weeks ago. They are in 5th place of the East now. Life comes at you fast. So if you're Atlanta, you're like, hey, maybe we can use that to our advantage and climb. But the other issue you have with that is if we don't get it right, life will come at us fast and we will be almost even with Montreal. And that's a worry I think they have to have at this point as well. I'm talking about 6 points away from New England. They're only 7 points better than Montreal.
Yeah, all fair points. I mean, that's the beauty about playoff soccer, right? Is you're never quite out of it until you start adding more teams to this league. So, like you said, Jordan, they're one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference, but 2 wins and they're right back into the thick of the playoffs. So even 3 wins straight could do some damage. So, yeah, no, you're never out of it unless your name is LA Galaxy. So,
or Montreal,
or Montreal, right? So, but I want to ask you now, Jordan, your team, are they masquerading as a good team or are you buying them?
I'm kind of back to buying them again. Here's what I'm going to say. Again, if you rattle off those wins, you're like, okay, not great teams as they currently are, but beating teams they should. Last year, they did not do this. So I'm a little bit more optimistic now that after they kind of faltered, they've completely rebounded. And I like that. I like that a lot, where they have rebounded. They're in 2nd of the East, only 2 points behind Columbus. They're averaging 2 points per match. They've still only given up 10 goals. They've scored 21, which is the highest in the East. It felt like they were hitting a slowdown after Baribo kind of went off, but now they're kind of started scoring again. They're winning 3 in a row or whatever, right? Like, it feels pretty good again. I thought once they kind of hit that stretch of loss, draw, loss, I'm like, here it comes, right? Here it comes.
Yeah,
They're
here
kind of
comes the
falling back
collapse.
down to
Yeah.
earth. But they win 3 straight. Now they have to go face Columbus, which is going to be a tough one. They will have to face LA Galaxy, which schedule-wise, if you look at the standings, should be fine for them. Then they have to go to Atlanta, and then they face Miami again. So they have like 2 hard teams, 2 kind of easier teams. So you would say theoretically you want 6 points out of these next 4 games. Maybe 7 points out of these next 4 games. That's kind of what the benchmark should be, I think, for this club. But I would say I'm kind of back into buying them again. Seeing them rebound, seeing them actually and not just like 1-0 scraping by wins, right? Like they're actually putting goals on these teams and winning. So, they beat Atlanta 3-0. They beat DC 3-0. The closest one to scraping by is that Montreal, but it was away from home. So, I don't know. Like, I feel pretty good about them right now. I don't think you can be too mad at them being, top of second in the East. At this point last year, they were kind of falling from their. We at this point last year, we had already went and saw them lose to RSL. Then they lose to Seattle a few days later. Like, this was the turning point of the season last year where they started falling. They're not doing that right now. So I feel pretty good.
Yeah, I think anytime that you can steady the goal ship, that's where it helps. And they've always been pretty decent defensively, actually really good defensively. Last year, I think that was kind of a weakness of theirs. They seem to like a lot of defensive mistakes last season, where this season it's not getting them like it was last year. I feel like they've steadied that. I think Carnell's part of that. I feel like he's steadied that ship defensively. And they've gone to more of a system, I think, that works for them and this personnel that they have. Um, like you said, I think the next 4 games are a big test for this Union team. I think come back in 4 weeks, Jordan, and we can give you a definitive, all right, this team is for real, because I feel like they're going to get tested by Columbus and Miami, because Miami's now dipped out of the CCC and a Columbus team who is firing on all cylinders right now. So they will. The Crew got them both at home, but I think if they play well against them, they can collect 7 points out of these 4 games. I think you'd be riding pretty high because it's still a tough game to go on the road to play in Atlanta. So, yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel like right now for me, it's a question mark just because they started out so well, beat really good teams, kind of fell off. Gazdag gets traded. So we were kind of like, all right, what is this team now? Like, do they have anything left? And sure enough, they've scored more goals in the last 3 games than they have in a little bit. So
If
I don't know, pretty confident right now for them.
okay, here's something I want to bring up too, because we do this occasionally where we look at last year's points totals
Yeah.
and kind of look at this year. So they're
Yep.
22 points out of 11 games.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many they had last year, Logan, out after 30 some games?
After 30 some games?
Yeah, like after the end of the season when they had what? How many games is that? 34?
34.
34.
Yeah. How many points did they have?
Yeah.
Gosh, 40, 48, 47.
37.
Did they really? They were that bad.
37. So they are 15 points away from matching last year's total.
Where did they finish in the conference last year again?
They finished 12th.
Okay.
So
wow, they were that bad.
To get to a playoff spot, which is let's say the wild card spot that Atlanta got last year, it's 40 points. That means they're 18 points away from almost locking up a wild card spot, to the point where I'm feeling pretty darn good that unless there's a catastrophic failure, they should at least make the wild card, right? Like that's where because you need 18 more points. You've done 22 and 11.
And I'd say, yeah, better because that's not many points to get.
To win the East, Miami had 74. That was a record point total. I don't think it's going to take a record point total this season, right? But, 74 points was 2.18 points per game. The Union are at 2 points per game right now. So, like, they're on track, right? They're on track. I'm not even going to say they're going to win the East or anything, but I'm just saying to stay up in that level, even if they're like 4th place where Orlando finished last year, 52 points, they are 30 points away from matching that, which is, you need there's 23 games left. At that rate, let me do the math here. I want to figure out points per match. If you take
I was going to say less than a point. I mean, to get to, the wild card, they would have to be brutal to even miss the wild card.
You have, what did I say, 30 points to get 4th place.
Yeah.
With 23
matches left.
23 matches left. You need 1.3 matches per game in the rest of your stretch,
which is very doable.
That is very doable when you're especially on a 2-point clip. Last season they actually finished with 1.09. So as a full season. So like they're playing pretty well, but that's where I'm kind of putting of like they're playing at top 4 kind of level play right now. Points per match, the only team that had above 2 last year was Miami in the East. So you would actually say right now they're playing in a top 2 level.
Yeah.
But all of these teams in the top 4 right now are at 2 points per match or higher. So it has changed a little bit, but you would think some of those teams are probably going to drop off. And you, like I said before, you see how quickly it can when you had Charlotte, who was 1st place a couple weeks ago and now are 5th.
Yeah, but usually the top 2 teams in the East-West are right around that 2-point mark, right? Like, 1.8 would be the goal there because it's what LAFC had last year. So I'd say 1.8 is where you want to be. And if I'm looking at the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference right now, Jordan, if I'm looking at those teams, you've got Columbus, Philly, Cincy, and Miami. I'm not too convinced that Cincy just looks they're good, but they don't look like they have in past years.
The goal differential is worrying there.
Yeah.
Out of the top 4 teams, they only have a 2 goal differential because they've only scored 15 and given up 13. The other 3 top 4 teams, Columbus, Philly, and Miami, very, very close with Columbus scoring 18 and giving up 10, Philly scoring 21 and giving up 10, and Miami scoring 20 and giving up 11. Like they are so close to like those same goals for and goals against that you're right. If there's a team that's probably going to drop out of it right now, I would look and be like, it's probably going to be Cincy. But you also don't have like the only team I could see maybe taking over Cincy right now would be Charlotte. Like, I don't know if I believe in Nashville. I don't know if I believe in NYCFC to overtake them, you know? Nashville and Charlotte would be the closest ones because those goal differentials match those top teams more than they match Cincy's. So that'd be kind of who I'm worried about if I'm Cincinnati right now. Okay. Miami did get the win. They sit fourth in the East. Now they have a game in hand. If they actually win this game in hand, they would be tied on points with Columbus. So I don't want to count them out fully. They're 3 points behind Columbus, 1 point behind Philly and Cincy, but they have a game in hand. They've still only lost one game as well. So that is another point in their favor. But Miami's upcoming schedule is at Minnesota, at San Jose, then home against Orlando, at Philly, Montreal, Columbus. I feel like they actually have a pretty tough schedule coming up for Miami here, because like at Minnesota's been a really good team in the West right now. They've crept back up to second place, you know. Then you will have to have them face against San Jose, which I'm not too worried about Miami doing, but they will be traveling across the San Jose. So that could cause some issues, especially with the older players traveling. And then you have home against Orlando, which I would think they would win. And then at Philly, which I actually think that they could probably win as well. And then at home against Montreal, they should steamroll them. And then they face Columbus at home. So Miami's kind of got like a kind of a tough schedule coming up here that I'm kind of curious to see how they'll do, because I would say I feel like the vibes are kind of low. People really calling out Mascherano and stuff.
Yeah, I think the lowest they've been since he's arrived, to be honest with you.
Which is still wild because, yes, they lost to Vancouver, who's been great, but like they're 1 point away from topping the
game
East.
in hand. Yeah, like they have a game in hand.
I'm kind of baffled by it, honestly.
Yeah, because they're at 21 points. Columbus has 24, so if they win that, they're back on top of the East. Like,
yeah, they have a better goal differential too. Yeah.
So,
and a better goals scored, which is what I think they actually use. But yeah.
But it just, like you said, there is a weird vibe. I think because Jordan, top teams are starting to handle them pretty well, and that's concerning for Miami fans because, I mean, let's not ignore the elephant in the room, Jordan. These guys are old. I mean, you're 38, 37, 36. Like, those are some old guys, and you can't have Suarez, Messi, and Busquets playing every game, or Alba. So I think that's where Miami fans are right now. And to be honest with you, Jordan, I mean, if I'm Miami, I'm just trying to get to the postseason, right? Like that's what they want to see.
You've done everything else, right? Yeah. Like you've won Leagues Cup, you've won Supporter Shield. It's MLS Cup or bust, right? We don't know how long Messi is going to stay here.
Right.
Messi is longer. In talks to extend his contract, but you're also looking at, with the rest of the staff around him, the rest of the players around him, how long can you keep this type of nucleus together?
If you had to guess how much longer,
I think it can go until 2028.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, right around 2 or 3 years might be.
Maybe he goes out, like if he plays World Cup 2026, maybe he goes out on like a Copa. Copa America.
Somebody like him,
I think would be 2028.
Somebody like him, I don't know, man. I just don't see him playing or stopping before he's 40. Like, he feels like that kind of guy that'll just keep playing. Whereas Ronaldo, once Ronaldo's done, he's done. He'll give in. But Messi's just a competitor. It doesn't feel like he ever wants to stop. Like, people remember when they were saying that he retire from the Argentinian squad? I still think he plays in the World Cup.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Okay, so Miami, Messi had goal of the week. They said, we'll see if we agree with that, but that was voted on by the fans. San Diego crushed Dallas 5-0, stopping their 3-game losing streak. So, great San Diego victory there after kind of falling, like we said, 3-game losing streak.
Player of the match day, Chucky Lozano.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not get a chance to vote. I was out of town, and I thought I would not be a good voter in that regard, so I did not vote.
I voted for Chucky and why am I blanking? Espinoza from San Jose.
Okay. But yeah, it's good for San Diego. Get back on the horse, right? We have Minnesota get a win. They now sit second in the West. They beat Austin 3-0 on the road. Pretty darn good result for Minnesota, as they continue to just kind of be like a team that kind of like flirts with the top 4, and we'll see if that's where they finish at the end of the season.
It's okay, Jordan, to say we're waiting for the inevitable collapse of the Loons.
Sorry, Jack. Sorry, any Minnesota. I'm just worried about
you know have to.
How it's
history.
Been. Yeah,
it's the trend.
Seattle have secured 10 out of 12 points in the last 4 matches. They beat St. Louis 4-1, which was Smetcher's 130th regular season victory, which ties him with Frankie Yallop for 10th all time already amongst head coaches in MLS. I'm just, again, I've been telling you this, and I feel like telling the listeners this. I wasn't really that worried about Seattle because I feel like they've done this a lot the last few years.
Seems
and here they are
now. Yeah.
While they're only 1 point above like a playoff spot, or like 3 points above a playoff spot, they are in the non-wild card spots, and they're actually only 1 point away from 4th and 3 points away from 2nd.
Yeah.
Of this wide open West that we're in right now.
Yeah. So you call them contenders at this point.
Theoretically, yeah, right? Yeah. Like this, they do that every year. I feel like they're
a threat to Vancouver right now. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I would say Vancouver has to feel pretty safe. If they're 7 points above Minnesota,
that's insane.
Anybody underneath of that, it's got to be worried about Seattle and LAFC breathing down their neck at this point.
I mean, we I guess we had it last year, but like we've very seldom had a team just run away with a conference. Like, I always feel like there's at least another team chasing them, but like Vancouver's getting into that territory, Jordan, where
they are.
If they start to win, if they win 2 or 3 more straight, like that's gonna be tough.
And those teams below them falter.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
which looks positive, but possible. So
yeah, looks positive if you're a fan of Vancouver, not positive if you're a fan of anybody else. LA Galaxy through 11 games winless. They lose 1-0 to SKC.
Jordan, is this
3 points on the year?
If you're an LA Galaxy fan, I think this is a fun question. If you're an LA Galaxy fan, how you feeling?
Because last year just won. You just eat it. You won it all last year. You say
you're not worried.
You take it on the chin. You take it on the chin. You say, I will not watch as many games as I thought I would this year. And we'll get back at it next year. I think I've mentioned that a few times this season, but like I'm sure the front office is trying to fix whatever is wrong. But if you're a fan, it's like you just won. Like what else are you gonna do?
Like,
and you have the most in MLS. They have the most MLS Cups. Like at a certain point, enough is enough.
At any point could you see them? Like, I know fans are out there shouting from the rooftops because that's what fans do. Do you see any way that they part ways with Vanny because they're like, what in the world was that? Like, could there be a point? Like, how bad would it have to get for them to seriously consider going, you know what? This was really, really bad. Even though it was out of our control for a lot of it, this was really bad. Because I just feel like, I mean, Jordan, I'm pretty sure they're gonna set some kind of historical record with this, like to go from MLS Cup winner to like the lowest points ever earned by a reigning MLS champion. Like, it's gonna be like, I feel like they are bound and determined to get that into that territory. So like, is there a possibility out there that you could see Vanny getting let go?
No, I think they have to know, like he just delivered you the goods. It's one of those things of, again, I Well, I think the front office is going to try to fix whatever they can player-wise. I do think that they're probably looking at it more of this is almost a lost cause, and we will have to restructure for next year on bringing, we'll have Ricky Puig back. We'll, be healthy again. We'll also maybe bring in some new players or maybe sell some players that are on the downward trend or something. And then we'll kind of regroup and do better next year. That's what I feel like they have to think. And I would think they would, I think winning an MLS Cups grants you a little bit of leeway. We didn't really see that with Columbus and Porter, but I'm wondering if they just knew they had a shot with Nancy and was like, this is it. This is the moment to take the grab and just pull the trigger and move on. Like, I really wonder if that's something that they knew they had up their sleeve there.
Yeah, because I mean, this still has the remnants of a good team. I mean, Paintsil, Peck, Puig. I mean, you're going to be able to surround them too with good players because it's LA. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, even if they lost which they won't, but if they lost every single game this season, if they go winless their whole season, I still think Vanny would have a job. Like, that's how confident I am in the fact that LA Galaxy people are just enjoying their time right now. They're still celebrating. They still drink wine and stuff after the game, celebrating their MLS Cup from last year.
Yeah. Okay. Atlanta and Nashville drew. DC beat the Rapids. Chicago and Orlando had a disappointing 0-0 draw. I'm sure there was nice texts going back and forth between you and Andrew.
Chicago looked way better too. Orlando's been awful. Jeez.
Yeah, they got the extension, and he's like, all right, time to pack it in.
I saw somewhere, Jordan, where like over the last couple of years, they've finished in the most 0-0 draws out of any team in the league.
I would believe that because I feel like sometimes we come on here and I'm like, right. A 0-0 draw
for Orlando. Yep, I've been to a lot of those games with Matt.
You guys started off last year with a lot of them,
like 4 straight. It's brutal.
LAFC beat Houston 2-0. San Jose beat Portland 4-1 as they're trying to get right. And Cincy's 5-game winning streak was snapped by NYCFC. All right, let's go to our name and shame segments here. Player of the week, we'll just say Lozano, right? Like I said, I didn't get a chance to vote this season, but 2 goals, 2 assists for Lozano as San Diego had a huge win. You mentioned it earlier. You voted for him. Let's go to goal of the week. Who's your goal of the week, Logan?
Lionel Messi. I mean, his ability where he basically loses the ball up over his head and he's like looking for it. And then he finds it, locates it, and hits a volley. I'm like, how in the world did he do that? And there was a lot of good goals this week, but I continue to be impressed with just his ability to do things. I just don't understand how he does them.
It's an impressive goal. And I think to be different, I'll change it just because I really liked Heel's goal.
Me
Carlos
too.
Heel's goal. Man, what a strike that was. So I'll go with that. Yeah, I'll go with that. We had some U.S. Open Cup matches that were going yesterday and today. Charlotte moved on. D.C. moved on. They beat your Charleston Battery. Nashville beat Chattanooga. Red Wolves. New York Red Bulls beat Colorado Springs. And Portland beat Tacoma Defiance, Seattle's team. Today, right now, we have the Riverhounds and NYCFC going on as we're recording. Then later, Rhode Island versus New England and like a little nice local match here. Philly versus Indy 11. Tampa Bay, Orlando. That's a fun matchup.
There's a war going on right now outside my window. There's like Orlando and Tampa fans running around with knives and stuff. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. They're rowdy. I told you they're rowdy.
Louisville City and Minnesota. Chicago and Detroit. St. Louis Union Omaha. Dallas versus Alta. Austin versus El Paso. Phoenix Rising and Houston. And San Jose Sacramento are the games tonight. Going over to what our game of the week is, Saturday, May 10th, we have a 2:30 match, Chicago and Atlanta. 4:30, there's a couple games, Minnesota, Miami, Toronto, DC. 7:30 starts with Cincinnati, Austin, NYCFC, Montreal, New York Red Bulls versus the Galaxy, Orlando versus New England, Philly versus Columbus. Then at 8:30, we have Dallas RSL, Houston Seattle, Nashville Charlotte, St. Louis San Diego. And at 9:30, we have Colorado San Jose. And at 10:30, Portland versus SKC. Sunday, May 11th, Sunday Night Soccer, we have Vancouver versus LAFC. Logan, your game of the week.
Yeah, people are like, "What? You picked this one?" The reason why I did, Jordan, is a certain someone is going to be heading back to Cincinnati. The Brandon Vasquez derby. Um, and I've had to go back and check because I was like, I don't think Brandon Vasquez has played in a little bit. So, but I like this matchup anyway. I feel like these are two teams that, Jordan, I think both of them are in an interesting area because I think that they're very similar in the way that they've just not been able to put it together. And it's very intriguing because they're relatively newer clubs in MLS. The cross conference, I think, rivalry, I guess you could say. I mean, you add in like a Brandon Vasquez who could eventually play in these games, but I don't know. I'm trying to see if Cincinnati is for real because I still feel like they're not playing to their best abilities. And while they've gotten some wins, I still feel like there's some disconnection between Evander and the rest of the attacking front. And I still think if Cincinnati's got sort of an issue there that they've got to figure out because I don't think they're one of the top teams in the East. And then Austin, again, start well, kind of taper off, and we keep writing the same story for them. So can they figure it out? So there's two teams that I feel like lack an identity, but I feel have very good fan bases, very good support, and should be good teams in this league. But we got to see if they can figure it out. Plus, a lot of the other games I was going to leave the one to you because I felt like it was a good one. I think it's the game of the week, in my honest opinion. But Jordan, what is your game of the week? I guess I could have gone Loons in Miami, but I didn't.
I'm going basic Vancouver LAFC.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to go Philly Columbus. That's a good one.
I got to go Vancouver. Got to give them their props. And LAFC, they're rising up. But like this is a big test for Vancouver on, do you keep up there or do you start to slip with the big gap that they have? So that's my pick there. Shame of the week. Logan.
Jordan, I mean, it's always hard because I feel like there's never like a clear-cut favorite in a lot of these weeks. So I'm always like kind of trying to figure out like how am I going to pick a shame of the week if I don't feel like there's a bad game. But Jordan, this week there's a bad game. DC United, Toronto. So I was, got good goal scorers in this game, but I just feel like these two teams have been disappointing ever since I've covered the league. I mean, just truly disappointing. And I think they continue to let us down this week. I'm going for a 0-0 draw, even though they got some good goal scorers. I just feel like these two teams are headed for no man's land. And I just feel like they've got no direction. We continue to talk about them in this ilk. So I'm going DC Toronto.
Yeah, that's kind of like the obvious one, I think, that jumps out, right? But I think I'm going to go, while this is a fun matchup because it's two original teams, I'm going to have to go with, you know what? No, I'm going to switch it up. I almost said Red Bulls, LA Galaxy. I'm going to go Chicago, Atlanta. I'm going to go Chicago, Atlanta. Ooh. Chicago's been a little bit on a downward trend. Atlanta hasn't been taking the steps up. I just don't know what to really expect from these teams. And I'm, not really sure. Like if I look at Chicago, like they lost to Nashville 7-2. They drew with Orlando 0-0. It can go one way or the other with them. But Atlanta, on Atlanta's end of it, like we talked about earlier, like they got blanked against Philly and Orlando 3-0. And they drew with Nashville 1-1. They're just not scoring. They lost to New England 1-0. Like, they're not scoring goals. Their draw with Dallas 1-1. Like, the last time they've even scored more than one goal was against NYCFC when they won 4-3, and that was only their second win of the season. Like, at the beginning of the season, they were scoring like 3-2. Then they would lose 2-0, 0-0, 2-1. And then they drew with Cincy 2-2. And then they won 4-3. But lately they haven't been scoring goals. And I thought that would come after, them finally connecting. But as the season goes on, they're still not really doing what they need to do. So I'll put them as shame of the week. All right. Well, that will wrap us up, I guess. Thank you all for watching at Stateside Show on all of our social medias. If you want to send us anything there, have a great rest of your week. We'll be back next week to talk all the events that happened in Major League Soccer and the Open Cup. So thank you all for watching. We'll catch you next time.